Hello, everybody, and welcome to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and it's New Year's Eve. So it's New Year's Eve, and this is my New Year's Eve broadcast here. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, as always, and we'll be broadcasting on WYSL as well. And I wanted to start off by just asking you guys for a quick favor, and that is to head over to my YouTube channel and go ahead and click subscribe. So those of you who are listening to the radio, if you could, when you get home, just go to youtube.com, search Andrew C. Hollister, hit subscribe. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers so I can unlock the next set of features in YouTube that will allow this content to reach even more people. And while you guys are at it, if you're not on the Facebook page already, please go to Facebook, search Andrew C. Hollister, like that page, share it with your friends, ask them to subscribe as well. So as you guys know, I have been broadcasting from the Czech Republic for the last few episodes. I'm still in Czech Republic, but today is my last broadcast from Czech Republic. So I'll only be here for a few more days. Friday, when I broadcast, I'll be live again in the WYSL studios. So for those of you who have been asking me and sending me messages saying, what's the number to call in? You'll be able to call into the show again and ask me questions live on the air or provide your comments live on the air when I'm back in the WYSL studio. But until then, if you do have any questions or you want to, give some feedback, put a comment, just go to the Facebook live stream, go ahead and comment with your question there, or you can do it on YouTube, or you can do it on Twitter as well. Any of those, I'm monitoring them. So if you send me any type of question, I'll check it either during the breaks or throughout the show and make sure that I get that. And I see a few people are joining into the live streams right now. So thank you guys for joining me. Jim, Carrie, Michelle, and looks like Ed. So thanks for joining into the show. Once again, this is the New Year's Eve show and the last show I'll be doing from the Czech Republic. So being that it's New Year's Eve, I didn't think I could get away with doing this show without talking about New Year's resolutions. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because there's a lot I want to cover in the show. I want to cover New Year's resolutions. I want to talk about Ben Wassel again. I want to talk about the minimum wage increase here in New York State. And if we have enough time, I want to talk about the guy who got 2 moments of fame. Which is an interesting story, and I think I'll have a totally different twist on it than those of you in Rochester who have heard about this guy. So I'm hoping to get through all of this, and if I'm moving too quick, let me know, but there's just a lot that I want to get through for you guys. So the very first thing, New Year's resolutions. I'm going to tell you guys, I'm sure a lot of people are talking about New Year's resolutions. You might be planning some, maybe you're not. You have family, friends, everybody's talking about them. Here in Czech Republic, people are doing it too. So this is a worldwide thing. It's not local to us in New York or even the United States. It's all across the world. Me personally, I don't have any New Year's resolutions. In fact, I can't remember the last time that I did do a New Year's resolution. And the reason for that is I'm always setting goals for myself throughout the year and moving towards achieving them. And when I achieve a goal, I move on to the next one and create another one. So I don't ever have like first of the year, this is my goal or this is my resolution. In fact, I started, I guess what you could call a resolution. I just call them goals or ways to improve myself, whether physically, mentally, or with personal time, whatever it may be, additional education. I just set them and then I do them. So the most recent one I've done is actually been, I set a goal to make my health better and my fitness better. I used to be really, really active. I used to play a lot of sports. I used to be on the track team, in high school. And I used to spend a lot of time in the gym just working on being healthy, being fit. I used to do bike racing. And then when I started my company and put more and more and more hours into my company, a lot of my fitness and health kind of fell off because I was just putting 18, 20 hours a day sometimes into my small business to build it. And then when I wasn't building my business, I was either spending that time with family or sleeping's important, or doing other things. So a little less than a month ago, I decided I would start working on my fitness again. I'm most of the way through once again, you could call it a resolution if you want. I just call it a goal, of doing 100 push-ups a day. Now, for some of you, that might sound like a lot. And when I first started, it was. I couldn't do probably more than 10 or 12 push-ups at a time when I started it. And every day I split them up. Maybe I do 10 push-ups, wait an hour, do another 10 or 12. And, some days it was really, really hard. And I've been pushing through it, working really hard to get through it. And I've been mostly successful. I did have 2 days that I didn't complete. Some of that because of travel when I was flying here in layovers. I wasn't going to do push-ups on the floor in the airport. And others of it was just spending time with family and stuff, and totally lost track of time. And before I knew it, midnight hit and I hadn't done all my push-ups. So that's kind of how I do things, but I don't want that to stop you from creating a resolution for yourself. In fact, if you're going to create a resolution for yourself, I think that's awesome. And I want to give you a couple ideas as to what you can do to be successful, things that I do, things that other people do that I don't, but they're successful in the way they do things as well. And everybody's different. So I'll share with you a little bit of that. And, whatever you choose for your resolution to be, I hope you're successful. And I think that one of the things that people should do is not choose too many resolutions. Pick between 1 and 3. 3 might even be too much, depending on what your resolution is going to be. So really think about that when you decide that you're going to do a resolution, how many you're going to do. I have a friend who was just telling me the other day he's going to do 4. He chose 4. He put I think he said he put 14 resolutions on sheets of paper, put them in a hat, and drew 4 of them to figure out what he was going to do for his resolutions. And that to me seems like a lot, but maybe for him it's not. I don't know. So we'll find out. We'll see if he's successful or not, and if he is, maybe that works for him. So the very first thing I want to suggest that people do for their resolutions or their goals, whatever you want to call it, is that you make sure it's something obtainable. Don't make your resolution something that's so far out of grasp that you'll never be able to get there. Because if you do that, you're going to be very discouraged. It's going to be very, very difficult, and you might give up. Or you have to be tremendously, tremendously disciplined. And if you're very disciplined and very motivated, you might make it through, but it might also be really miserable. And in the end, you might actually not achieve it if it's not obtainable. So you really want to make sure as your very, very first step that whatever your resolution is, whatever your goal is, the thing that you're going to achieve, that you make sure you set it to something obtainable and obtainable for you. What's obtainable for you might not be obtainable for me or somebody else. And what's obtainable for somebody else might not be obtainable for you. So you want to make sure that it's obtainable for you, whatever it may be, whether it's an additional habit you want to integrate into your morning routine, or it's some exercise or diet or saving money or paying a bill or maybe paying your bills on time. I don't know. But whatever it is, make sure it's obtainable, because if it's not and you keep having consecutive failures, you'll get discouraged and you might give up on it. A lot of people, they do give up on their resolutions within the first 30 days. And I was reading an article that says it actually takes 66 days to create a habit. So if you don't make it through your first 30 days, obviously it's not going to form a habit and you're not going to get out of it what you were hoping to. The next thing I want to give you is just write it down. It's really simple. Write down what your resolution is going to be. Once again, I really encourage you guys, 1 or 2 at the most. Otherwise, you're going to have a list, and what happens? You're not going to read it. So write it down and share it. Now, you could share it with somebody so that they can hold you accountable. You could share it with somebody who you want to almost like impress, whether it's a friend, a loved one, or something. You want to show them that, yeah, you set this goal and you were able to accomplish it. Somebody you love, somebody you respect, somebody that you look up to. But when you write it down, make sure you put it somewhere you can see every day, so that every day you're reminded of what that goal is, what that resolution is, when you wake up and before you go to bed. So maybe that's a bathroom mirror, or on the kitchen fridge, or on your nightstand, or something like that. Something I do, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, is you set a reminder on your smartphone or in your calendar to remind you, especially in the times where you think it might be getting too late to complete that goal. So put it somewhere where you're going to see it every day. Share it with one person, preferably 2 or 3. Make sure you have some sort of connection to that person where you want them to want you to succeed and you want to succeed, so you can share that success with them. The third tip that I'm going to give you, this is the absolute biggest for me. I don't know if I'd call it the most important, but for me, it's the most important. Once again, for you, it might be a little different. For me, the most important way for me to be successful is having a way to measure my success. For me, I like to see progress. Some people, they like making checklists so that they can check things off the list. I'm not one of those people. I make checklists because otherwise I'll forget. But I've met people who say they make a checklist because they get satisfaction out of checking things off the list. If you're one of those people, that might be a way for you to measure success, having things checked off your list. What I'm going to share with you guys is an app that I use to help me track the habits I'm trying to build, track the goals I'm trying to achieve. And I use it to measure my success. And I've used it for my push-up challenge, the goal that I'm trying to achieve, doing 100 push-ups a day for 30 days straight. So I use an app. If you search for it in the App Store, whether you're using the iTunes Store or Google Play, it's under Habit Tracker. The icon is just a picture of a bull. And when you download it, the name is actually called Habit Bull. So it's kind of strange. If you search Habit Bull, it doesn't always come up. I'm not sure why it has 2 different names. It's a totally free app. I'm not getting paid to advertise this app or anything like that. There's no financial connection. I'm not getting royalties or something like that. But this is an app that I've been using to help track my progress, my success, and really help me measure my accomplishments. And something that's really cool, say you're doing something that quantifies for you what you're doing. So say it's you want to do 3 nice things a day for somebody you don't know, or you want to once a week do some certain thing, or in my case 100 push-ups a day. You can actually go in the app, so I'm going to pull it up right now, and it'll actually give you statistics on everything that you've completed. So it'll tell you, your daily streak, the values you've entered, your minimums, your maximums, the times you've attempted to achieve your goal, your percentage of success, those sort of things. To kind of just keep you going, let you figure out where you are. And the thing that was cool for me, I didn't realize this till a couple days ago, since I have it tracking a quantity of things I'm doing, I have it tracking the number of push-ups I'm doing, it actually tells me how many I've done in a month, which is really cool. So I've done 3,465 push-ups this month. And to me, that number sounds like huge. It's crazy. And it tells me on average I'm doing 816 in a week. So for me, that's really cool. I don't just do 100 a day, obviously. Sometimes I'll try to go further. So having something to just track and measure your success will make it'll help you be more successful, because you have some way to quantify if you're on track to success for your goal. So that's what's most important for me. I know that's not going to be most important for everybody, but that's what helps me get through my goals and helps me achieve them. And most of the time, I am successful in reaching my goals. The fourth piece is celebrating and sharing your success with somebody. Now, this could be the person who you told that you were working on this goal. And I would do this in little spurts. So when I actually started doing this, I didn't really tell many people. I think my wife was really the only one who knew at the time. And I think part of that was the goal was a little lofty at first, and I was kind of worried that I wouldn't achieve it and I wouldn't be successful with it. So I think I really only told one person because I was nervous I might not be successful. And because I was worried about not being successful, I didn't want a lot of people to know that I wasn't successful. But as I was going through it, I actually found it more motivating to share with a friend or a family member. Yeah, I've been doing this 100 push-up a day thing. I've been doing it for 2 weeks now. Now I can actually do more than I started. It doesn't hurt so bad, you know. And celebrating and sharing that success throughout the process will give you the motivation to keep going. So for you, it could be anything, whatever your success is going to be, share it with a friend. You could make it a post on Facebook. I did do that like towards as I was nearing the end because I was really excited, but I didn't really feel as engaged that way. I really felt more engaged just talking one-on-one with a friend about how the process was going for me and how great it felt. So each of you, it's going to be something different. And I also would say by celebrating your success, you should also treat yourself to something nice as a reward for doing well. Whatever that treat might be. You know, obviously, if you're going to do a diet, maybe you treat yourself to a slice of cake. I don't know. Or maybe you treat yourself to something else. For me, I always try to, and this is actually an extra tip that's not really in these four here. But for me, I try to make my goal something that I consider also a reward to myself. And I know that might sound kind of strange. So on my birthday, I decided I was going to do an extra 100 push-ups. And that was my birthday gift to myself, is doubling up on my goal that day. I know some of you probably think I'm crazy and you're probably dropping off the live stream like, this guy's nuts, you know, what's he talking about? But say your goal is, you know, you're going to do something nice for a person that you don't know twice a week. Maybe that's your New Year's resolution. You might decide, wow, I've gotten through my first month successfully. I hit the goal. This week, as a reward to myself, I'm going to do it not twice this week, but 4 times this week. And gift that to yourself as success. I know that for some of you, you're going to think, well, I'm doing a diet and I'm not going to do extra diet or something. That's fine. Gift yourself something else. Reward yourself with something else. Treat yourself to something and reward your good behavior, because that's what it's all about. So just kind of some of the other things I do successfully. It's not in these 4 tips, but just kind of extra stuff that I do personally. Whenever I set my goal, I always make it positive. When I talk with other people about it, I always say how positive it is. I never say, oh, these push-ups, they suck, you know. It's just so hard to do. It hurts. No, I'm always talking about how positive it is, how I can feel the change, how great it is. And then I reward myself for my success. I make achieving my goal a reward, and give myself another reason to keep going. So if you take those things, take those tips, I think that you'll have really good success with your New Year's resolution. I know that some people find it helpful to have an accountability partner, somebody who does that goal with them, you know, checks in with them. I guess you could say that's kind of what the app does for me. Lets me track my success, and I can see the days I was successful and the days I wasn't. So it's kind of like having an accountability partner. I've personally never really had a person as an accountability partner. I never needed it. I know some people do, and that's not to say my way is any better than yours. It's just I didn't find it effective for me to have somebody checking in with me each day, because it's almost easy to just, oh yeah, I'll get to it, you know. So for me, that's a New Year's resolution. So if you're going to try to do a New Year's resolution, hopefully those tips will help you guys get through it, make it happen, and that you'll be successful in achieving your goals as well. So I am way overdue for a break here, so I'm going to take a quick break here. This is Andrew Hollister on Radio Free New York, and we will be back in a moment. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me here on Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. I am broadcasting live from the Czech Republic. This is my last episode that I'll be broadcasting from Czech Republic. On Friday, I'll be back in the WYSL studios. You'll be able to call in with your questions and comments. And I was just talking about New Year's resolutions. I see a bunch of people in the comments talking about their New Year's resolutions, whether it was this year, last year. I see I've got some people on Twitter joining in as well. Yeah, I hope everybody's really successful. Christy says, last year, once a month, she'd buy a coffee for somebody who was behind her in Dunkin' Donuts. Cost her about $3 a month, and the feeling was amazing. And yeah, that's absolutely right. Your New Year's resolution, can be just doing something for somebody else. It's an amazing, amazing feeling doing something for somebody else. And I really think that also betters us in just so many ways as well. So thanks for sharing that. I'm going to step away from the New Year's holiday now and talk about something in New York. And because this is a New York radio show after all, and we often talk about politics. And I've started to think about incorporating some help with finances and money and stuff like that into the show. So I might start adding a segment, either Money Monday or Finance Friday. I'm not sure which. I'll kind of figure it out over the next few days. And as I was putting that together and looking through my personal finances, and some of you know I'm a small business owner, so I'm preparing for New York State and the federal government to tell me, all the wonderful tax dollars I'm going to be paying them before the end of April here. And looking through all the regulations and guidelines and everything that's going to be different starting midnight tonight. And one of those is the minimum wage increase in New York State. Now, I'm going to start this off by saying the minimum wage increase doesn't necessarily impact my small business. The reason I want to say that is for two reasons. One, I don't want you to think that my opinion on this is me being wounded by this law and upset with the government because it's hurting me financially. Because for years, none of my employees have been paid minimum wage. They've always been paid more than minimum wage. So I want to just start that off with that so that as I talk about this, you understand I'm talking about it from a small business owner's standpoint who understands how minimum wage works, understands how small business finances work, specifically to New York State, and who also has a lot of friends that run small businesses who do have employees impacted by the minimum wage. And my first few jobs, I was a minimum wage worker. So I understand and grew up working minimum wage jobs and saw the impact it had on the places I worked for as minimum wage increased. And I will say just right out of the gate that the idea of minimum wage to me is, I guess, annoying is the best thing to say, because I think people should be able to be paid what they're worth. And I don't believe that people would be making pennies an hour if there was no minimum wage. In fact, where I am right now in Czech Republic, their minimum wage is like so small. Nobody even knows what it is. I think somebody said they think it's about 50 cents an hour. It's so minimal that just nobody gets paid it at all. And they don't have artificial inflation of certain jobs and things like that because of the minimum wage. And they are the top country, from what I was reading, in the European Union as far as they have the least amount of homelessness, the least amount of poor, all these other things. I'm not attributing all of this to the fact that they don't have a minimum wage. I'm just saying not having artificial inflation of a workforce can be a contributing factor. So let's just kind of talk about the minimum wage in New York State here a little bit. I just want to run through it. as I said, I'm a small business owner, but not necessarily impacted by the minimum wage increase. But with the small business owners that I have spoken to, they all have different ways and different plans on how they're going to deal with the minimum wage increase. And just to give you guys an example, let me tell you what the minimum wage increases have been. So it's been over the last 2 years. It went from $9.70 an hour to $10.40 an hour. And as of midnight tonight, or I guess technically it might already be in effect today. I'm not really sure because it says 12/31/2018. It will be $11.10 an hour. So those 3 jumps there, and it continues next year. It'll bump up to $11.80 an hour, and then from there it'll go up to $12.50 an hour. So it looks like a 70-cent increase per hour is what the rate schedule is for New York State. Now, New York City has a number of different tiers and choices. So if you're in New York City, you're considered a big employer if you have 11 or more employees, which to me, that's still a small business. So it'll be $15 an hour if you have 11 or more employees, which means you're going to find employers firing employee number 11 so that they can be at the other minimum wage rate, which will be $13.50 an hour. So if you have 11 employees, your minimum wage is $15 an hour, or 10 employees, your minimum wage is $13.50 an hour. That equates to $1.50 additional per hour per employee by just having one extra employee, or an extra basically $15 an hour on top of that last person at $15 an hour. So I think that we'll actually find businesses in New York City, depending on their industry, probably are forcing themselves to stay at 10 employees or less so that they're not paying an extra $1.50 an hour per employee. Long Island and Westchester have their own special rate schedule. They're at $12 an hour. So that also goes to show when we talk about home rule, New York City, Long Island, Westchester, they're already operating under their own home rule. The rest of New York State should be able to do that as well. So going back up here, I'll tell you guys what small business owners have told me personally. And this is matched what I've read in articles as well. So it's not just the people I know who are talking about this. This is people all over the state. Their ideas on how to deal with the minimum wage increase are this. A, raise their prices. And sometimes it's not just one of these things. Sometimes it's a combination of multiple of these things. So raising prices, cutting employee hours, cutting employee benefits, laying off employees, closing their businesses, or moving their businesses to a different state. So those are the things that I hear commonly. And when I say commonly, like almost every single time, unless I run into a small business owner who, like me, none of their employees are impacted by the minimum wage increase. So it doesn't really change things for us because we're already paying more. Now, for a lot of people who have never ran a business before, especially a small business, this sounds really selfish to them. It does. They hear that small business owners are talking about this and saying these things, and they go, well, these fat cat business owners, they're just hoarding their money, and they're not willing to share it with their employees who have built their wealth. And I think that can be and probably is the case in large corporations where we see big CEOs taking multi-million-dollar bonuses and, you know, like that sort of thing. But for your small businesses, especially in New York State, you're not going to find that. What you're going to find is you're going to find owner-operators like myself who work nearly double the hours of their employees. Many times they don't get the same benefits that their employees do because they can't afford to give themselves the benefits. So they'll give the benefits to their employees to keep good employees, to try to be competitive with big corporations, but they can't actually afford them for themselves. So many times they personally opt out of those benefits so that they can keep their employees and also not close their business. By working all those extra hours, they also lose a lot of time with their family. And they do all of this with the hope that someday they build the company to the point where they can retire, whether that's by selling the company or continuing on with the company, just maybe in a lesser role, or selling the company customer list, or they just do it. Like I run my company. I absolutely love what I do. I love technology. It's my passion. I do it every day. I'm not bored with it. So there's a lot of different reasons people do it, but by and large, the small business owners I've met are just truly dedicated to their company, to their employees, and they really look at it as they're working hard to make sure they provide for everybody's families who works for them. They put food on everybody's table, and that's how they look at it, and they take it very seriously. So the idea that a lot of people think that these small business owners who are worried about this minimum wage are selfish, to me is just they just don't understand. And yes, I'm sure there's selfish small business owners. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is everybody. I'm just saying these are the people I come into contact with. These are the people who are hurt and really nervous about this. So I wanted to kind of explain business profit to you guys a little bit. Those of you who might not have worked for a small business and don't understand why this is such a big deal to these small companies. So I did just a little bit of research on the 2017 numbers, since 2018 isn't totally closed out yet. And Investopedia and the S&P 500 say that in 2017, a good profit margin for a healthy business in 2017 was 11%. 11%. That's the profit margin. If you're a well-performing business, which many small businesses aren't well-performing, but if you were, you'd profit at 11%. So that means for the businesses that operate their employees at minimum wage are seeing an increase in their costs by 6.3%, which brings that 11% profit down to 4.7%. Now, I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you guys, and I'm throwing it really, really quickly, so kind of bear with me, The other thing is, so you've gone now from an 11% profit, which is considered healthy, to now 4.7%, which is considered in danger of going out of business, very unhealthy. Now, that 4.7% isn't a real number. The reason it's not a real number is because your business insurance, your unemployment insurance, your payroll tax, and your disability insurance are all calculated based on employee wages. So all of those insurances have probably gone up that 6.3% as well, which takes away even more from your 4.7% profit. Now, I didn't go through and calculate out like where that would really put you, whether it's at 1% profit or 2% profit or 4%. I didn't go that far. I just want to give you guys this as a concept to think about and understand. So now you're literally in a situation where your company might not make any money whatsoever. And once again, this is assuming that all of your employees are getting paid minimum wage, and that you're in a competitive industry, that the profit margin is like that. But also, once again, this is saying overall for businesses, 11% profit is healthy. So we're not talking about, 50, 80% profits. No, this is saying this is what the numbers were for 2017. So let's put this in perspective. For a small business owner, runs a small company, they run a $500,000 company, right? $500,000 a year in revenue. That's a decent number for a small size business. At 10% profit, that business owner is making $50,000 a year. $50,000. Now, at 5%, they're making $25,000 a year. Or if we look at that 4.7 that we talked about, $23,500 a year. Now, the new minimum wage is $11.10 an hour, or $23,000 a year. So the other thing you have to remember is these small business owners are usually working many more hours than their staff are. in general. I'm painting maybe with a broad brush here, but this is literally how every small business owner I know, they're working constantly. The employees go home at 5 or 6, they're there till 8 or 9 at night. Then they show up at 6 or 7 in the morning. The employees show up at 8 or 9. These people are really working hard. So they're working double the hours, but making $500 more a year. I mean, this is the reason that these business owners are talking about, yeah, I've got to cut some employees. Yeah, I've got to cut some hours, because they're working for less than the minimum wage now. And that's why you hear people all the time say these small businesses are shutting down, they're closing down, they're leaving our state, they're cutting hours. That's what's happening. That's what's happening, because we're keep raising the bar. So people get upset with small business owners and say, oh, they're raising their prices. How dare they? They want to put more money in their pockets. That's not what's happening. What's happening is they're trying to make sure that they can still provide for people's families. So I have more to talk about this. We're going to take a real short break here. This is Andrew Hollister on Radio Free New York, and we'll be back in a moment. All right, guys, you are listening to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. I'm broadcasting live from the Czech Republic. This will be my last episode here in Czech Republic. I will be back in the WYSL studios on Friday, where you'll be able to call into the show, tell me what you think, ask me your questions. But for now, comment your questions or your thoughts on either the Facebook live stream or the YouTube stream or the Twitter stream. I'll see them, I'll check them, I'll respond to them. Looks like a few more people have joined us here. Barb, Brian, and Caleb. Thanks, guys, so much for joining. And what we're talking about the impact of the minimum wage increase here in New York State, and what the S&P 500 and Investopedia have said is a healthy business profit margin, and how these minimum wage increases actually ruin that profit margin for the small businesses. So they have the choice of raising their prices, which might not work in the market, depending on where their market value is of the product or service they're offering. If they raise their prices, they might fall out of that. A lot of small businesses are choosing to relocate out of the state, or they're choosing to close their doors, or they're choosing to cut benefits, or cut employees, or cut hours, or some combination of those things to make it work with the New York State business environment. And just to kind of give you guys a little idea of some of the fees and taxes businesses are already paying in New York State, they usually have some sort of business insurance and usually an umbrella policy on top of that. Every business is going to have to pay New York State payroll tax, unless, of course, they have some great government subsidy like the Amazon deal. They will pay state unemployment insurance. And a little note about that, I recently found out that if an employee leaves your company to work for somewhere else, so they give you 2 weeks notice, they say, I'm going to this other company for whatever reason, and then they get fired from that other company, you are still responsible for paying their unemployment if they worked for you in the last 18 months. So found that out recently. That makes no sense to me whatsoever, but that's how New York works, and it's very frustrating. You're also paying state disability insurance. Any additional local taxes, then you're paying state and professional licensing fees, depending on what field you're in. You'll also pay local licensing fees and permits, and then state franchise fees and income tax. You'll also, depending on how your business is structured, many small businesses also pay an additional self-employment tax. These are the people who own the businesses. It goes on their personal tax return of an additional 12.5%. So if you're working for somebody, you get a regular paycheck, a regular W-2 at the end of the year. As an employee, you get taxed at your regular tax rate. If you are a business owner, depending on how your company is structured, whether it's a sole proprietorship or an LLC, you will pay an additional 12.5% self-employment tax on top of your income. So those are just some of the things that businesses are already paying. That's actually a really short list, to be honest, but I wasn't going to go through everything. What I do want to talk about now is something that we talked about a lot in the last 6 months, and that is if we didn't do a minimum wage, or we didn't do a minimum wage increase, how could we give people in New York State more money, and where would it come from, type thing. So a really simple thing to look at would be, I talked about the minimum wage increase is about a 6.7% increase. I think it was 6.3%, a 6.3% increase. What if we eliminated the state income tax? That's 6 to 8% of your income right there. That's a raise overnight for every New Yorker, not just the ones making minimum wage. That's a raise for the lower class, the middle class, the upper class, everybody. Small business owner, employee, sales rep, manufacturing person, doesn't matter what you are, you see a 6 to 8% raise right out of the gate. But what else is really great about that is it doesn't cost the business, big or small company, medium-sized company, large, big corporation, doesn't cost any more money. What does that mean? There's no need to consider eliminating employees, no need to consider cutting hours, no need to consider cutting benefits. In fact, no need to consider raising your prices, which means people have more money and prices didn't go up. Because what happens constantly is when minimum wage increases, or really anything increases, when there's any type of increase to the cost of business, the prices will go up to reflect that. So what happens is you have, the baseline cost here, then the cost of business goes up, well, then the price of the product goes up, then the cost of business goes up, and the price of the product goes up. And I don't know how people think that this somehow will fix things. We're just raising the cost of everything. If you eliminate the state income tax, you've taken 6 to 8% of somebody's income, you've given it back to them. It was their income to begin with, the state took it. They now have a 6 to 8% raise, but didn't cost the business anything. So there's no reason for prices to go up. People have more money, but prices stay the same. Even the small business owners who work their knuckles to the bone get a raise out of this. So I think this is the number one best way that we can start fixing things, is by eliminating the state income tax. Now, I know somebody listening to this show is thinking, but what about the roads? That's always the number one thing. What about the roads? What about our schools? What about this? First off, we have a school tax. It's separate from our income tax. We have a gas tax that covers the cost of the roads already. We have so many taxes here in New York. We have sales tax, and we have a state sales tax and a local sales tax. We still have permits and fees and licensing and insurances and all these regulations already. We have all of this. In fact, there are at least 6 other states in the nation who have successfully eliminated their state income tax. Now, people will say, well, New Yorkers expect a certain level of services, so it'll never work. Well, New York's population is dwindling. We are losing population to the tune of over 100,000 New Yorkers every year. 100,000 New Yorkers leave. You know where they're going? They're going to places like Florida that have no state income tax. So think about that. People from New York are fleeing to Florida, to a state with no state income tax. They have half our budget, half our tax budget down in Florida, and they're making things work. And people will say things like, well, we have snow, so we need to put salt on the ground here in New York, and this and that. Yeah, they have hurricanes in Florida. They have cities wiped out and rainstorms in Florida. They have to rebuild stuff. They're making it work. They have to rebuild their roads as well. So snow is not an excuse for our terrible, terrible taxes. Um, all these states that have no income tax, they still have roads, they still have schools, they still have other services. Their people are happy. Their people aren't coming to New York State. You're not finding people that go, man, what sounds like a good idea is moving to New York State to lose more money. It's not happening. So how could we actually get through this? How could we go ahead and look at actually eliminating the state income tax? Because it's a chunk of our budget and we already have a deficit. Well, the first thing, and it's very, very obvious and very clear, people don't talk about often, is you have to cut spending. You can't cut taxes. Cutting taxes just means you shift the tax burden to a different thing. We cut the income tax and now we've increased the business tax or the payroll tax or something like that. Now, in order to actually eliminate the state income tax or any tax really, we have to start by cutting spending. Once you cut spending, then you can have a surplus, then you can remove the tax. So there's three things that have to be done to do this. Now I'm going to run through them kind of quick because I can see here looking at the timer I'm running out of time. So the first is we have to address our infrastructure. I just watched a video on Cuomo's Facebook page about how amazing it is that we just spent millions and millions of taxpayer dollars, money from your pocket, money from my pocket, on the new Mario Cuomo Bridge, the bridge that he named after his father. We spent our money on it. Most of us here in upstate will never actually drive on this bridge, yet we paid for it. And he touted this as a success. It's not a success when the roads in upstate New York and all throughout the state are broken and in disarray. We pay taxes for them to be repaired, but we're not cutting our spending. We're not spending our money wisely. What we need to do is open it up for corporate sponsorship, similar to stadiums, the opportunity for people to lease naming rights on our bridges and our infrastructure, paying millions to sponsor and have an advertisement at the pull-off areas where you can pull off for texting. And these companies would spend millions on this. Millions of dollars that's not coming out of my pocket or your pocket, but they'll actually go towards improving our infrastructure. In addition to that, those companies would be expected to actually repair the infrastructure that they're sponsoring. So that means they seek out the contractors to fill the potholes. They're spending their budget on it. And of course, they're going to be much, much more efficient than our state government. They won't have crony capitalism because it's corporate America. They're going to be worried about the bottom line. And they're not going to do a crappy job either because they don't want people to drive over the Kellogg's bridge full of potholes and say, wow, Kellogg's really sucks. I'm not going to buy their product anymore. They're putting their brand on it. They're going to do a good job. The other things we need to do, we need to address our pension bomb. If we don't address the pension bomb in the next 10 to 15 years, New York State is going to default on pensions. If you think that it's not going to happen, look at places like Detroit. It's already happened. People say it's in the Constitution, they have to pay. When there's no money, they don't pay. It's that simple. We have to address the pension bomb, get people into 401ks, 403bs, give them payouts, whatever. It's already over 15% of our budget right now. 15% of every tax dollar going in is going into the pension system. So it will explode. It's not sustainable. We have to fix it. And that would take years of negotiation. But if we don't start now, New York State is going to fall into a recession in the next 10 to 15 years. The other issue that we have to address is Medicaid copays. And this is something that for some people is kind of like something that people don't like to talk about, I guess. They're really worried that you're saying that we won't help poor people. And that's not the case at all. A copay today is $1 and $3 for a doctor's visit and a medical emergency. what we've seen time and time again, and that was a volunteer EMT. And I know other people who are volunteer EMTs today and paid EMTs and paid paramedics, and the complaints have not changed. People, because it's $3 for a ride to the emergency room, are using the ambulance and the emergency room as a taxi service. It's being abused, and the people with actual chest pains are, the ambulance is tied up. They can't actually get to the hospital. People who are actually in need. We raise the copays, really simple. $12 for a doctor's visit, $36 for a hospital visit. We'll see the abuse go down. You'll see the abuse go away. We'll see healthcare get better because people are seeking an emergency room when they need it, and when they don't, they're actually going to the doctors. So we have less overfilled emergency rooms, less tied up ambulances, people still getting the care they need, less abuse on the system. If we do those three things, we can actually eliminate the state income tax. So those three things, I would love to elaborate on this more, and maybe in the next episode I will. I also know, I'm looking here, I didn't even get to the guy who got 2 moments of fame, so I'll talk about that on Friday's show, which will air at the normal time, which will be 1 p.m. Eastern time. I will be live in the WYSL studio, and I wanted to give you guys a brief update on the Ben Wassel court case. A few people asked me during the last show if the court date has been moved. As of today, it has not been moved. Look for the details on my Facebook page. I'll post them again today. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Radio Free New York. I will catch you on Friday.